Hello, my dear viewer. Imagine you are watching an anime. It's a comedy series, so the laws of reality aren't too important. The main character is an assassin whose tool of escape is a small chicken that he keeps in the stomach pocket of his jacket. How is that a tool of escape, you ask? Well, it's simple. The chicken flies away and carries our protagonist with him by grabbing onto his balls and hanging him upside down. Don't worry if you feel this is too mundane a plot point for you, though, because the chicken also has the ability to grow a full, ripped human body that he uses to fight/intimidate opponents, all the while making JoJo poses and running off of, and I quote, sexy energy. Wrap this all up in a tragic backstory and you begin to see the unhinged madness that is Scissor Seven. The aforementioned escape chicken is Zhao Fei, and is only one of the constantly growing cast of lovably quirky residents of the world of Scissor Seven, but serves as a good example of what makes this show special. It is a crazy spectacle that wears a thick coat of comedy that, once it's removed, reveals a second, thicker coat of highly creative action that in itself hides its true core, which is a story of heart and humanity. Although, it is easy to be distracted by the first two coats. I mean, look at these poses, look at this color palette, look at these hairstyles. There is a lot to take in when watching Scissor Seven, and much like a snowball rolling downhill, it's constantly growing as it amasses new ongoing gags, new reoccurring characters, and opens up to the world at large. But our world still seems to be sleeping on it, so I'd like to take the next couple of minutes to express the many reasons you should watch Scissor Seven. First and foremost, this show's kind of funny. Like, really funny. It wears its over-exaggerated expressions, insane scenarios, and wacky character designs with pride, and presents its comedy in a constant stream of visual gags, reoccurring jokes, and parody-based satire. The parody aspect being very important, as it serves as one of the main catalysts for a lot of the show's jokes, and also the narrative structure. The setup for the narrative borrows heavily from the tropes of a traditional action anime. Our protagonist has a classic case of amnesia, so that we can learn about the world from the same frame of perspective as him. And the world he does find himself in is one where superpowers and martial arts are one and the same. This means that those with the greatest martial skills have overwhelming power, and typically take advantage of this power by killing others for status and money, and are ranked based off of this power, with the top of the rankings being known world-round, kind of like an evil version of either the Heroes Association or the Goatee 13. Seven, without a past and thus no discernible future, is convinced by a mentor figure that we find in a fat blue chicken named Daibo to join the killing profession, to make cash, to help treat his amnesia, and find out who he truly is. A by-the-book setup as there's ever been, but Scissor Seven uses this classic setup to subvert and play with the viewer's expectations of a typical shonen battle anime, and the method it uses to do so is its comedic style. Seven, having taken the role of professional killer, is expected to kill people. But every time he's hired to do so, the person he's hired to kill ends up being some kind of martial arts master, often putting Seven in some tight spots. But rather than facing them directly head-on as a shonen protagonist should, he often tries to disengage from the conflict via deceit or intimidation, or simply just trick his opponents into an easy kill. Due to Seven's profoundly bad luck, these tactics rarely play out to his advantage, leaving Seven on the ground, really wishing he could just go home. But at the same time, doubling down on his next tactic, which usually fails, leaving him on the ground, really wishing he could just go home. But at the same time, tripling down on his next scheme, which only fails even harder. It is this blind determination of Seven, ping-ponging against his wacky opponents, equally off-brand shonen personalities, that leads to some of the show's biggest laughs and keeps every fight fresh, because you never really can expect how Seven is going to play out his next move, or how his target is simply going to counter it. Seven's moveset also enables for a wide range of setups, as he's equipped with the amazing Gaiba Egg, an invention of Daibo that allows him to change into anything, including floor tiles, a durian, or a rubber duck. With this limitless fountain of stealth options, you'd think that Seven might be able to avoid a fight here or there, but fortune spites our boy at every turn, usually only bringing him more attention and getting him into situations like dogs wanting to prove his dogness by eating fresh poop in front of them. From the overemphasized reactions to the unpredictable powers, each character manages to deliver a good laugh, whether it's from a blue dog with the power of rock and roll, or a middle-aged female moral officer straight up shooting a Kamehameha at Seven. I'm always excited to meet the next character that our goofball hero will have to face next, because not only will they present a hilarious showdown, they always have a way of coming back into the story one way or another, joining the cast of already offbeat weirdos, which usually means they bring back their jokes building on them or presenting them with new context. It's not all pure wackiness either though. While the show certainly relies on a flavor of absurdity, it also acknowledges it by throwing in a deadpan F-bomb every so often when the main characters realize just how underprepared they are for the madness they're facing.
I'm the king of chickens! You may call me Chicken a la King!
And honestly, it gets me every time. The art of the show helps sell all of this too. Starting off with a rougher animation style with a bright and varied color palette that makes the lighter tone and jokey nature of the world really work, while also complementing the character designs that are constantly shifting to fit the comedic tone of the show. Honestly, looking at this show is more like looking at a Western cartoon from my youth with only splashes of anime inspiration here and there, focusing on the comedic aura that the show gives off. But over time, the show's animation gets a little sharper, a little more clean, and as is the case with a lot of things in this series, it evolves and changes, building up something, and you start to see that underneath the comedy and jokes, there's something a little more going on. The show's action goes surprisingly hard. The quickest way to describe it is that it's like a small YouTube animator that makes those 30-second fight scenes made a whole goddamn show. The angles the animators use are unconventional, and when they try to convey a 3D space, they end up reducing the shot composition to simple shapes as the camera spins around the room or zooms through an environment, which at first seems a little rough and uneven, but just like those YouTube videos, it shows such a love for animation. It feels like the animators were just sitting in a room and said to each other, I don't really think we could pull this shot off. Screw it. It'll be really cool just to try. And most of the time it really pays off. Not always, but most of the time. And then season 2 starts and the visual effects, the shading, the backgrounds, oh gosh, it just evolves. Let's take a look at Captain Jack's fights from seasons 1 and 2 and compare them real quick. Season 1's fight takes place in Jack's submarine, where the backgrounds depict variously roughly drawn machines that one might find in a sub, and the colors, while being bright and cheery, are washed out to direct attention towards the main characters, something we see throughout season 1, almost mimicking a storybook presentation. The outlines for our characters are thick and pencil-like, sometimes even showing multiple lines as if it's still a sketch. Every time Jack lands a good hit, Seven's body stretches to exaggerate the impact. My favorite shot is our handsome aristocrat of the high C catching Seven's hand and breaking it, causing him to have this expression. With him, his outline becomes chaotic and messy, just showing how out of his element he really is. And then Jack pushes him back with just a simple movement of his fingers, and in doing so, the color completely fades from the impact point, completing their transformation into moving sketches. In total, there's some pretty good shots in here, but a lot of the slower portions of the fight really drag some of the frames out, and some of the inconsistencies in the character models feels more like underdeveloped storyboarding rather than comedic flavor. Season 2's fight, on the other hand, remains much more consistent with its models and really only deviates when the characters are emoting something through their shift in design. The outline work is not as exaggerated, but it's still there. It just feels more controlled and intentional. This idea is also echoed in the background work, as while the camera still shifts around to show the surrounding area, the quality of each angle is way more on point. Throughout the fight, the lighting in the background slowly progresses from afternoon to sunset, showing a shift in time, and the red hues during the sunset portion raise the tension, as the fight itself is a race against time to save Daibo from being cooked alive. The animations are highlighted with after effects like lighting sputtering off Seven's scissors, or Jack's menace taking form with a visible aura that glows from behind him. There is the shot where Jack breaks Seven's bones, and the color they use has this neon tint that gives off the impression of an X-ray. Oh, I just love it! There's just so much more technical work being shown off in the fight. You're just bombarded with the evolution of the animation team. It drives me wild! And then season 3, oh, don't even get me started. But a fight is more than just the animation. It's the characters, the setup, the surprises, which is where my favorite part of the whole show shines. You see, There's sort of an unspoken rule in Scissor Seven that is simply, if it happens on screen, it's canon. And with a show that wears its comedy so blatantly front and center for all to see, hitting the watcher with joke after joke, there is a good deal of wacky things that are just true in this show. Remember when I said a middle-aged female moral officer straight up shoots a Kamehameha? She can just shoot lasers now, that's a part of her moveset. Or how about the blue dog with the power of rock and roll? Seven's first real assassination target. Well, he comes back and has a romantic rival now whose power comes from playing heartbreak music to counter the rock, and for some reason this fight is just one of the best in the series as it brings back Mad Bark's rock powers, Zhao Fei's sexy form, the solid as gold 7-day lock, and it just looks so good. Why does Maokai, some offbeat weird follow-up character, have one of the coolest, most fun fights in the series? Because it's Scissor Seven, baby! Nothing makes sense, but yet it all matters. This show somehow makes comedy become the perfect fuel for some of the most entertaining action that I've seen. Every gag serves as a possibility to become a key plot point for a fight, which in turn makes me invested somehow in the jokes of all things. Something I don't think any other piece of media has really gotten me to do. There's just so much going on in these short 15-minute episodes, and yet there's still a massive element of the show that I still haven't touched. The very thing that lies at the center of the show, what drives the characters to act, what really invests the viewer, and despite how much it tries to hide it, it's the show's heart. As I said before, it is easy to be distracted by what this series throws at you, with its jokes and action scenes because of how well executed it is and how well it mixes together and reinforces each other. But after watching Scissor Seven, I feel like it's obvious that the creators not only wanted to entertain and delight with their creation, but also wanted to tell stories about humanity. It starts in the first episode too. Seven is hired to cut some chick's hair during her wedding, so he infiltrates the celebration and is about to cut her locks, when he is distracted by a video that's playing showing the wife and groom growing up together. And what's so odd is the visual style of this slideshow. The backgrounds are less cartoonish, the characters are far less exaggerated, and instead of taking place in one of the more fantastical settings, the pictures seem to depict something much more similar to our real-life world. The two newlyweds don't even look like the ones in the pictures, but what is shown is a simple story of two people growing up together, and given the context of the wedding, we're brought to believe that they fell in love. Upon seeing this, Seven asks himself, probably for the first time since his amnesia, why don't I have any memories? What kind of person was I? In seeing these two people, real people growing up together, Seven probably wonders if he had anyone like that, waiting for him to come back. This kind of human connection influences Seven throughout the whole series, with the real reason he fails to kill any of his targets being that he encounters them. He sees how they are and the experiences they have. He faces their humanity, and despite having no memories, he chooses to sympathize with them. Mad Bark's lost chance at love, Cola's battle with cancer, and even Daibo's realization of found family. They all influence Seven and build him up from a random sleazeball in the beginning of Season 1 to someone that not only wants to protect the happiness that he's found in his new life, but someone who wants to protect the happiness that he finds around him. He befriends the people of the island and integrates himself into society, becoming a part of their lives. By the time Season 2 rolls around, Seven's role has shifted from someone who needs to be shown how to be human to showing others what he's learned and bringing them into his newfound life as well. A cool place this transition is portrayed is in the intros. The first intro only portrays Seven and shows him transforming into several objects, people, and animals, which parallels his transformation abilities, but also his lack of identity, constantly shifting from one form to the next with no real connection or through line. And while he does regain his original look, he quickly vanishes again into smoke with one of his diversions, as he is changed once again, this time into the studio's logo. Cute. This tells us that Seven knows what he looks like, but beyond that, he's lost. He doesn't know who he is. Whatever form he has is simply a tool that he uses and doesn't mean anything to him. Intro the second starts with a dynamic shot of the many denizens of Chicken Island, cutting their hair along the way as Seven has grown into his new role of barber in his new life. Seven catches his scissors and throws them along with the camera, transforming into his sweatshirt's logo and transitioning into a walking animation. His form changes with him assuming a large array of cosplays and references, similar to his shifts in the original intro, but this time around, he's always Seven. At this point, he knows who he is, or at least who he wants to be, and no change of appearance can change that. With this, one of the show's main themes becomes clear, which is identity. Who Seven is, who he wants to be, are the main influences that drives his character throughout the show. This evolves in Season 3 and becomes themes of redemption and second chances. But since that's all really located in Seasons 3 and 4, I won't really go too much into it. But I will say that Seven's journey does end up being one that I am actually invested in and has me genuinely concerned for the character. Which, for a show so heavily forward in comedy, is a pleasant surprise. Seven is not the only one with this kind of development either. Every character actually has a tragic backstory, some small and unassuming, but still enough to give that element of sympathetic relatability. The cast, which starts off as this small set of scammers and would-be murderers, slowly evolves into a real community, and a heartwarming one at that. This really helps drive home the show's depiction of humanity, because the villains are not just some maniacal force laughing in the background. They're often people forced to play the game in a world corrupted by radical pockets of power. And when Seven offers them community, friendship, family, they change. Scissor Seven is a show that runs a wide gambit, trying to juggle so many genres and emotions that somehow, some way, integrate and meld together so well. Whenever I watch an episode, I don't know if I'm gonna get a tale of unrequited love, an action set piece set between martial arts masters, a guy getting kicked in the nuts, or some unholy combination of all three. But it all ties together so shockingly well. The show may start with some inconsistent animation and a limited soundtrack, but much like its story, it grows and evolves. It's willing to switch animation styles on a dime and try something new, whether for a set piece or just a joke. Its OST expands and develops. It becomes something more than is just the sum of its parts. The show is by no means perfect, nothing ever is, but for me, it just resonates by giving me a goofy world that forces me to laugh, even after 3 rewatches, keeping me at the edge of my seat as Seven's battle for identity unfolds and delighting me with an ever-shifting, creative extravaganza of animation. And there's so much I still haven't touched on. Stan, Seven's past, the whole character of 13 and the romantic subplot. Oh, what I'm trying to say is just watch the dang thing, please. And then talk about it. We need more. Make a video, make a post, tell a friend. Or don't, talking to people in real life is hard. Oh, jeez. That's why I'm making videos. Oh, God. Thank you for watching.